Shalom, friends. Welcome to another Shear in Masechet Berachot. We're learning Talmud and we're studying Gemara Berachot, blessings. You'll see in front of you the beautiful Koren Talmud Bavli, and that's the edition that we're using. It has the original text on the side of the page, as everybody can see, and also the translation, as well as some notes and pictures, diagrams, photographs, and so on and so forth. And I'm coming to you from the holy city of Yerushalayim. And for those interested, please feel free to see my website, www.lovingkindness.co. So we're going to begin right away. We're continuing from our lesson from last week, where we discussed a very special mitzvah. Many people are not aware of this mitzvah, and many people don't do it. But the truth of the matter is that it is a mitzvah. It is halacha brought down in the Shulchan Aruch. And we're just going to go over it today very quickly, very briefly. And that is that there is a mitzvah to read the Parshah of the week and to complete the reading of the Parshah of the week together with the congregation. And according to many people, what this means is that we have to read that Parshah right at the end of the week as a preparation for the Shabbos, where we actually read the Parshah in Shul. Now, the mitzvah is such that we have to read it twice in the original Hebrew and once in the Aramaic, which means to say we read each verse 2 times in the Hebrew and immediately do the translation of the Aramaic, and then immediately continue to the next verse in the Hebrew, reading it twice, and then the Aramaic. 2 times Hebrew, once Aramaic. 2 times Hebrew, once in the Aramaic. So we said over here that K'da'amar lehu Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi livnei, that Rabbi Yehoshua, the son of Levi, said to his sons, Ashlimu Parshah Yosaichu imatzibor, Shnai Mikra ve'echad Targum. And this is what it's called. And here we learn it out from Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, who said that he told his children, complete your Parshah reading together with the congregation. Read it twice in the original Hebrew and once in the Targum. Targum, of course, means the Aramaic translation, not the English translation. If one wants to fulfill the mitzvah in the best possible way, he needs to read it in the Aramaic translation. And then he continued and he taught his children another important teaching in life. And he said, V'yizharu b'avridin k'Rabbi Yehuda. Be careful about shechting, about cutting the jugular vein, like Rabbi Yehuda Ditnan, that he taught there. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says, a person must be careful that when he's involved in the Shechita of birds, chickens, he must be careful to cut the vridin, the jugular vein. And as we said here last week in the note, is that it's not really to do with the halacha per se that a person had to do this, as he says over here. While this is not halachically required, it is appropriate to do so to prevent significant amounts of blood from remaining in the bird. And the reason is because the Jewish people do not eat the blood of an animal. The soul is found inside the blood of an animal, inside a bird, in an animal, except of course for the fish, which we are allowed to eat the fish blood, not in the sense of pouring out the blood and drinking it directly. That's a bit of a problem, which the halacha goes into detail about. But aside from that, one can eat a fish with the fish blood inside it. There is no way of having to remove the blood. Whereas for the birds and the animals, one must remove the blood first. So of course the key is, if we can check the animal in a way that the blood is removed as fast as possible before doing anything else, then we stand a higher chance of making sure that there's absolutely no blood in the animal whatsoever, which is how we have to paskin in halakha. We don't want to eat even a drop of blood of the animal which contains the soul in it. So he was teaching his children certain teachings. One teaching he spoke about was the Shmot, Shnai Mikra, the Echad Targum. Second teaching that he taught his children is when doing the Shechita, make sure to shecht also the jugular vein. V'yizharu b'zakein. And he also warned his sons. In other words, he taught them something else. He taught them about an elderly person. And he said to them the following, Sheshachak Talmudo mechmas onso. An old person who has forgotten his Torah learning on account of something that is beyond his circumstance, beyond normal circumstances, beyond his control. He's unable to control it. Something happened to him as he got older. Everybody knows that when people age, things change in one's brain. And it could be that a person was a big Talmid Chacham in his lifetime, and as he got to an older age, he started forgetting the Torah that he learned. This is a very sad thing, of course. We don't want such a situation that a person has spent so much of his life involved in Torah study, and then God forbid, by the time he gets to an older age, that he forgets everything that he has learned. Well, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi taught his sons that be careful with regards to the older person who has forgotten his learning due to circumstances beyond his control. The Amrinan, because we say that luchos, v'shivrei luchos munachot ba'aron, that the tablets and the broken tablets were both placed in the same ark. The tablets that Moshe broke when he came down from Har Sinai, and the new tablets that he was given when he went up to Har Sinai when he went to collect the second set of tablets. So even though the one tablet was broken and the other one was in a state that was good and the original was as it should be, nevertheless, both of them were placed in the Aron Kodesh next to each other. The broken tablets next to the tablets which were the real thing, which were the real tablets. Why? Because the fact that they were broken doesn't detract anything from the holiness that once was inherent inside it. And so therefore we must be very careful that when we are in the presence of a Torah scholar or somebody at least who had spent his life involved in Torah study, and then it seems to be that he's lost his mind in his old age, or something has gone wrong with him and he's unable to recall the Torah study that he's learned throughout his life, we must still give him the respect that is due to him. It is just a case of somebody, just like the commandments, the 10 commandments, the tablets that were broken, but it makes no difference. The inherent holiness is still there, even though the tablets were broken. Rava said to his sons, when you cut meat, don't cut the meat on your hand. Very interesting halakha. I mean, this makes basically ordinary sense. It's ordinary logic. Why should you not cut meat on your hand? There are those that say, Mishum sakana, because it's dangerous. If a person's got a knife and he's cutting meat on his hands and he cuts a little bit too deeply into the meat, he's going to cut his hand. And some say, Mishum kilkul seuda, because of the ruin of the meal, which means to say that if you're going to be cutting on your hand is also, it's not 100% clean necessarily. And as he puts over here as he puts in the note as well, that even if he cuts a small amount, he says here, if he cuts himself slightly, that small amount of blood could still spoil the meat and render it repulsive to eat. Nevertheless, perhaps he's teaching us an additional insight into general food preparation and food behavior, that where possible, a person should always prepare food in a way that is clean as is possible, to wear gloves, not to lick the food, and that he's going to go back into the bowl, and therefore other people are going to have that. Whatever it is, when we deal with food, which is already a physical thing, we should be careful to treat it in a holy way and a clean way, so that other people also will not be put off from the food that is being prepared. And he continues with his teaching, and he said that don't sit on the bed of an Aramean woman. What does that mean? And don't pass by at the back of the shul at the time that the community are praying. Don't go around the back side of the synagogue when everybody is praying inside. Now he explains himself. Don't sit on the bed of an Aramean woman. What does that mean exactly? Some say that it means the following. Don't go to sleep without reciting the reading of the Keriat Shema in the evening. If a person goes to sleep, like, so to speak, we would just say it in an animalistic sense, whereby a person simply is tired and he closes his eyes and he drifts off into sleep, It's very nice that he does that. Most people go to sleep in that way. That would be the normal way of doing it. But it's similar to having an ordinary animalistic instinct when a person is tired and he simply closes his eyes. A person is hungry, he simply eats, instead of sanctifying the particular event that one is engaged in. When one eats, one recites a blessing before eating. When one goes to sleep, one also recites a blessing before going to sleep. One entrusts one's soul into the hands of God, so to speak, the hands of God. So too, if a person goes to sleep and he doesn't say Keriat Shema, which links him with God, which makes a unity with God, which brings him into the hands of God, it's as if he was sleeping on the bed of an Aramean woman. That's how he explains it. The Ikad Amri. And there are those that say, the law tinsavu giorta. Don't marry a convert. That's what this means. The Ikad Amri, and there are others that say, Aramis mamash. An Aramean woman specifically. In other words, don't sit on her bed. That's what it means. It doesn't mean anything to do with figurative speech, saying Keriat Shema, or marrying a convert. What we mean to say is exactly that. Don't sit on the bed that belongs to an Aramean woman. Umishum ma'aser Rav Papa, because there was a story with Rav Papa, and from the story we can learn the same idea and perhaps elaborate wherever possible on other ideas that relate to it. The Rav Papa azal legabe aramit. It turned out once in the story that Rav Papa went to visit an Aramean woman. Mita. So she brought out the bed for him. In other words, wherever it was, she had pulled it out. Amralo, and she said to him, shave, sit down on this bed. Omala, he said to her, Eini yoshev ad shetagbi'i es hamita. I'm not going to sit on this bed until you lift up the bed. Hikbiya es hamita. She lifted up the bed. Umatzu sham tinok mes. And they found over there was a dead child. What does it mean there was a dead child? It means she had a plan. She wanted Rav Papa to sit on the bed. And afterwards, she would then, make up a story in her own mind, and then she would accuse him falsely of the fact that he had killed a child who was underneath the bed. Bikan amru chachamim, from here the sages said, Asur leishev al mitas aramit, it is forbidden to sit on the bed belonging to an Aramean woman. Well, of course, the rabbis are telling us a particular teaching. It's difficult to understand how we can learn out a general rule from a particular specific story that took place with one individual. But perhaps the Gemara is teaching us a general teaching, and that is to say that when we're involved in relationships with people that we might not know well, or perhaps people that we might consider who don't have our best interests at heart, or perhaps even have a side idea about what they might want to do to us, and we are worried. Perhaps we don't know them well enough. We should be very careful to check out the situation before engaging in something that could possibly bring us to our own ruin. Okay, so let's see what the notes say over here. Due to an incident involving Rav Papa, according to a Gaonic tradition, this particular woman owed Rav Papa money, and she thought that by accusing him, she could force him to forgive her debt. Now, what is this idea of one is prohibited from passing behind a synagogue while the congregation is praying? While the congregation is praying, one may not walk past the side of the synagogue where the entrance is situated. If he is carrying a load, as we're going to see in a minute, donning phylacteries, he's wearing tefillin. If there is another synagogue in the area, if the synagogue has an additional entrance, or if he is riding an animal, it is permitted. Why? In those circumstances, when a person passes by the back of the shul, everybody can tell that he has something else on the go, and he is not entering the shul, not because he doesn't want to enter the shul, but because he has other things on the go, and he has to take care of other things. So the Gemara continues over here on this theme that we spoke about earlier. Don't pass by on the back side of the shul at the time that the community are praying. Messiah Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. This supports for Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, because Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said the following: Asur lo la'adam sheya'avor achorei beis hakneset b'sha'ah she'hatzibur mispalelim. It is forbidden for a person to pass at the back side of a synagogue at the time that the community is praying. As we said over here, we brought down halacha. Omar Abaye, Abaye said, V'lo amaran, and they didn't say this, the statement that you shouldn't go behind the synagogue, ella, but except in the following case, the leika piska acharina, when there isn't another entrance, because if there is another entrance, you can go past the back, because people will think that maybe you're going to enter through the other entrance. But if there is another entrance to the shul, leislan ba, we don't have a problem with that, because anybody who sees him walking past will think maybe he's going into the other entrance. And they didn't say it except with regards to the case if there wasn't another shul in the area. But if it happens to be that there is another synagogue available, leislan ba, there's no problem. How come? Because he probably was going off to daven in the other shul. Happens to be that he's passing by this shul in order that he can go to the other shul and daven. V'lo amaran ela delo darei tuna v'lo rahet. And they didn't say the statement except in the case where he didn't have a load that he was carrying or he wasn't running. V'lo manach tefillin, and he didn't have tefillin on him. Aval ikachad mehanach, but if he has one of these things, leis lan ba, there's no problem. We don't have a problem with any of this. Meaning to say, if the person can prove through his actions, when people look at him, that it's clear that it's possible that he's passing the shul for other reasons, then he's chosen not to go into the shul and daven with everybody else. So under those conditions, we can let him go. It is only when he passes by and clearly it doesn't seem like he has any other reason not to go in, except he's decided not to go in. If he behaves in such a way like that, people will accuse him and say, why didn't he come and daven in the shul? But in these circumstances, we clearly know there's another reason why he didn't daven in the shul, and therefore he can certainly be forgiven. Tanya, it was taught in a brisa. Omer Rabbi Akiva said, B'shloishe devarim ohevani is hamadiyim. Rabbi Akiva said that there are three things where I can definitely say that I love the Medes. This is a group of people known as the Medes, and Rabbi Akiva is teaching us a principle. The principle is that we can learn good things from all people in the world. All nations should have certain qualities that perhaps if we pay attention to them, we'll find a quality or two which we can learn from. Just because it's a different nation doesn't mean we can't learn from them. So Rabbi Akiva said, I was looking at the nation of the Medes, and I found that there were some things I could learn from them. These were three things. When they used to cut meat, they would only cut the meat on a table, which means to say, following our previous teaching that we learned, don't cut the meat on one's hand. So he noticed that the Medes would only cut the meat on the table. When they would kiss each other, they would only kiss each other on the back of the hands. And of course, we're referring to a general kiss of respect, where a person greets another person in the sense of saying hello, or as we know many times, for example, the custom amongst many Sephardim is that when they're in the presence of a chacham, of a great sage, when they greet him, it's not just the shake of the hands that they do, but they give a gentle kiss on the hands as well to show the respect due to the chacham. So, of course, if a person wants to show respect, it's certainly a way of honor if a person kisses the person on the hand. But of course, if he kisses him, on the lips or even on the cheek, so the person might feel a bit squeamish as opposed to being kissed on the back of the hands. Also, when the Medes give advice to each other, they only give advice to each other in the field, which means what? Which means they don't want, the walls have ears. That's basically what we learn now. The walls have ears. What does it mean the walls have ears? It means when we speak and we discuss things in a certain area where there are people to be found, there are other people that are always listening. Somebody else is listening to the discussion that's being had by these people. So the only way to avoid and to bring in the privacy, to avoid the problem that people are going to hear the message that shouldn't be heard, And instead, there's going to be privacy, especially when a person is asking for advice and he wants privacy. He says, please, let there be nobody else around because I'm asking a question. I need help. Sometimes the question might be an embarrassing question, a very personal question. And therefore, he doesn't want anybody else to listen to the question. And he says, please, there shouldn't be anybody else around. Well, the Medes were such a type of nation that when somebody would ask for advice, they would go out into the fields in order to talk about the discussion, the question, and the advice that they would give so that nobody else should hear what was being said. Omar Rav Ada bar Ahava, Rav Ada, the son of Ahava, said the following, my Qira'ah, what is the verse in the Torah that we can learn the idea of how important it is that when we give advice, when we speak to somebody on a personal level, we should speak in a way that nobody else should hear the discussion that's taking place for nobody else. Society today, everything is revealed. Everybody has to know everything about everybody else. So a person, for example, hears something, immediately he has to go into the social media, and he has to tell everybody about the situation. Everybody has to hear everybody else's story. We need to know everything that's going on in everybody else's lives today. But this is not the way that life is supposed to be. We're supposed to respect each other. We're supposed to give each other the privacy that we need. And here is a nation known as the Medes who used to do that. We're not talking about the Jewish nation who studied Torah. We're talking about a general nation, a nation amongst the general population who appreciated and valued what privacy meant. And Rabbi Akiva said, I value that nation because that's an important part of life. So where do we know it from? As a verse in the Torah, that we should give advice in a way that should be private. We should honor another person's privacy. The Pasuk says, Vayishlach Yaakov, and Yaakov sent, Vayikra leRachel uleLeah, and he called to Rachel and to Leah, Hasadeh, into the field, El Tzono, to his flock. Here was the story at this point in time that Yaakov had decided he had to leave his father-in-law and take his wives and his children with him on a new journey. He had to take on the journey to his own life now. He had to leave his father-in-law. He wasn't going to continue serving him and taking care of his sheep. So when he made this decision to do this, he didn't just blurt out in the tents where he was, where his father-in-law surely would have heard what he was going to say. And the walls that have ears would have also heard the message and passed it on to his father-in-law. So what did he do? He took his wives into the field and he told them in the field, it's time that we pack up our bags and we have to leave your father. So we see from here the direct verse in the Chumash itself that teaches us privacy is important. There's a way to go about it, and the best way to go about it is when we have to deal with a personal relationship with somebody, go out into the field, go to a place where people aren't to be found, and over there discuss what is ever else is necessary. Tanya, it was taught in a brisa, Omer Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel said, Bishleisha devarim, ohevani es ha-Parsiim. I love the Parsiim, the Persians, on account of three things. Meaning, since Rabbi Akiva was teaching us that he had learned certain things from the Medes, so Rabban Gamliel, is telling us that he learned certain things from the Persians. Remember, the Jewish people at that time were in this galut also of Persia and Medes. So this is the Medes and Persia. So we're bringing in these two particular nations. And even though they caused havoc to the Jewish people, but nevertheless, they certainly had qualities that were good as well. So Rabban Gamliel says, I learned three things from the Parsiim. I see that they are modest with their eating. They eat in a way that shows that they're human beings and they're not animals in the behavior that they take. I also notice, I'm not quite sure how he knew this exactly, but he says that they were modest in the bathroom. Or maybe when he says Beit Kisei, maybe he meant in the bathroom. I don't know what he was watching, was seeing to note what they were doing. Or perhaps there was an open area. And when people were in the field or whatever it was that they were doing what they had to do, perhaps he noticed that in particular they were very modest in that they kept themselves completely covered and they didn't just expose themselves. Unlike the bathrooms of today where a person finds himself in a private area and he feels the openness to do whatever he wants to, or to expose as much as he wants to. But in those days, when they didn't have this privacy that we have today, so the Persians were very careful to guard their modesty when they were doing what they were doing. Of course, it's no different today. Everybody has to be modest, irrespective of if he's in a private place or he's not in a private place. But the Persians were exceptionally modest in this area. And he says that they were modest in something else. And the something else, as we know, means in regards to sexual intimacy. He says that they were also modest with this. Perhaps they didn't stand out as being overly exposed or anything like that. And he noticed that their general behavior towards the subject of sexual activity and sexual intimacy was one that was a modest behavior. And so therefore he praised them for these things. The Gemara continues. Ani tzivesi limkudashai. I have commanded my consecrated ones. What does this mean? Tane Rav Yosef taught, Elu Parsiim, these are the Persians, these Mekudashai are the Persians, these consecrated ones. HaMekudoshim umezumanim legehenom. He says these are the Persian ones who are consecrated and prepared for Gehenim. He didn't obviously like what Rabban Gamliel was saying about the Persians, because the Persians didn't act in a very kind manner towards the Jewish people. So whereas Rabban Gamliel was learning out some good qualities of the Persians, well, Rav Yosef came around and he said, never mind modesty about this and modesty about that. What counts is whether or not a person behaves correctly in life and doesn't behave in an artificial manner. One moment he's so modest about eating, he's so modest about going to the toilet, he's so modest about sexual intimacy, but when it comes to destroying destroying another human being, that he does with flying colors. He just goes out and he destroys somebody. So he said, never mind all these modest things that they do. At the end of the day, they are mikudashim. They are consecrated, not that they are holy, but they are consecrated in the sense that they are prepared for Gehenim, because their behavior was unacceptable towards the Jewish people. And he used this verse in order to describe that is really the type of people that they were. The Gemara continues. Rabban Gamliel says, Omar Rav Yehuda, we're continuing back into the Mishnah. Those of us who can remember back that far, we were discussing a Mishnah a few pages ago. And when we began the Mishnah, we were not learning anything about these different areas of Agadah that we've been speaking about. The Mishnah was talking about the time that we recite the Keriat Shema. So according to this, we learned when you could start reciting the Keriat Shema in the evening, and until when we could recite the Keriat Shema in the evening. Now, Rabban Gamliel said that we can recite the Keriat Shema until the dawn. Omar Rav Yehuda, Omar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda said that Shmuel said, Halacha Rabban Gamliel, the halacha is like Rabban Gamliel, which means to say we can recite the Keriat Shema in the evening right up until the dawn. That is the halacha. Tanya, it was taught in the Brisa, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, the author of the Zohar, the great tzaddik who spent 13 years in a cave studying Torah, Pa'amim she'adam korei kriyat shema, shtei pa'amim balayla. It can happen that a person sometimes reads the reading of the Shema twice in the night time. Achas kodem sheya'aleh amud hashachar, once before the pillar of dawn comes up, va'achas la'achar sheya'aleh amud hashachar, and once after the pillar of dawn comes up. V'yetze bahem yedei chovaso, and he fulfills through them his obligation. Achas shel yom v'achas shel layla, once for the evening Kriyat Shema, and once for the daytime Kriyat Shema, once for the day and once for the evening. What are we referring to? If we go back to our original Shear where we began our discussion of the different times of the day, we'll remember that when we speak about the evening, we speak about a time which is called Shkia, when the sun goes down. And then we talk about a time which is called Bein Hashmashot, which means twilight period. And then we talk about a time called Tzeit HaKokavim, when the stars come out. These are 3 different periods, but we're not quite sure at what point in time the evening actually begins. When it comes to the morning, we have the same scenario. We have a time that is called Amud HaShachar, also known as Alot HaShachar, when the pillar of dawn comes up. And if one looks outside, you'll see that there's a kind of a ray of light that begins to come through on wherever one looks outside. One can see there's a type of a ray of light that exists, but it's not yet quite day. Then what happens is there's a period where the light becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, until eventually we get to a period which is called Neitz HaChama, when the sun comes up in all its glory and it rises over above the mountains and the day is clearly bright. So the question is over here, what do we say is the period of night time? We start off and we speak about the idea of Tzeit HaKokavim, the stars come out and the night begins. Let's assume that that's when the night begins. Now, until what period in time can we say it is nighttime? Does the nighttime go until Amud HaShachar? Or, in other words, right up until that time and that time only? Or perhaps it even continues afterwards? At what point in time do we define exactly when the next day begins? So according to Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, he says that sometimes it can occur that a person will read the Keriat Shema 2 times in the evening. What does he mean by evening? Obviously, he means when it's dark. Because at Amud HaShachar, it's still dark outside. If one looks outside, even though there's a glow of light, you can't really see it. It takes a good 72 minutes or so for the light to travel upwards so that we can see the light as the sun rises above the mountains. So therefore, this fellow is reciting the Keriat Shema 2 times, right next to each other, and it's the night time. And this all happens apparently kodem sheyale amud hashachar, before the pillar of dawn comes up. And he says, v'achas le'achar sheyale amud hashachar. And one time he reads it, it's after the pillar of dawn, just past. One is just before and one is just after. And he fulfills his obligation of reciting the Keriat Shema both for the daytime as well as for the evening. Because since after Amud HaShachar, it's already the start of the new day. So already he can fulfill the mitzvah of Keriat Shema in the daytime. And just a few moments before that, before it was Amud HaShachar, he could recite the Keriat Shema and fulfill the obligation of Keriat Shema in the evening. The Gemara continues, Ha-gufa kashya. But this whole thing is difficult to understand. The whole statement that you're making, Omrat, you said, Pa'amim, it happens sometimes. She'adam korei Keriat Shema shtei pa'amim belayla. Sometimes it happens that a person recites the Keriat Shema 2 times in the evening, which means what? Alma, we see, La'achar sheya'aleh amud hashachar le'Eliyahu, that after the pillar of dawn comes up, it's still the night time. V'hadartanei, and afterwards it teaches, Yotzei bahen yedei chovaso. He fulfills his obligation through them, achat shel yom v'achat shel laila, once for the day and once for the night. Alma yemamahu. So we see that it's really the daytime. So how can he say over here that you're fulfilling your obligation for the daytime and the nighttime? Yet he's telling us that in fact we're doing it at 2 times in the evening. Lo, the Gemara answers, no. Le'olam le'Eliyahu. No, it is always the night time. V'ha dekare le yom. And the reason that we say that actually it's called the day, even though it's actually the night and it's clearly dark outside, is the ike inashe de kaimi bahi shata. Because there are certain people that are already getting up at that time. And we say that when a person gets up in the morning, it must be the daytime. So since people are getting up at that time early in the morning, we call it day. But the reality is he is reciting the Keriat Shema still while it is the night time. But even though it's the night time, he fulfills the obligation of Keriat Shema once for the evening Shema and once for the daytime Shema. Let's just see if we've got, yes, we have a note over here in the halakha. At times, one recites Shema twice at night. Ab initio, from the beginning, one should recite Shema before midnight. That is what we learned before. However, he may recite it until dawn. If due to circumstances beyond his control, he failed to recite Shema before dawn, he should recite it before sunrise. In any case, one who recites it then does not recite the blessing, help us lie down, which is Hashkivenu. This ruling is based on a combination of the various statements cited in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. However, under no circumstances may one rely on the combination of those halachot so as to recite both the evening and the daytime Shema during the same time period, which means to say if one is going to rely upon the leniency of reciting the evening Shema before Neitz HaChama, one would not be entitled to recite the daytime Shema also before Neitz HaChama, because that would be a contradiction on itself, because one would be reciting two Kriyat Shmas in a period of time which one regards as both the night and the day. We cannot do that. Either it is night or it is day. If a person went through the whole night and he didn't say the Kriyat Shema and he was awake, and he now wants to say the Kriyat Shema and it's not yet Neitz HaChama, according to the halakha, he could still recite the Kriyat Shema of the evening. But he can't recite another Kriyat Shema immediately and say that it's daytime, even though it is the daytime. But he could rely upon that opinion for the nighttime. But he cannot rely upon the opinion and say that he's fulfilling both obligations, the nighttime, and then recite Kriyat Shema again, and then call it the daytime, because that would be a contradiction right on itself. Now we continue. Omar Rav Acha bar Chanina, Omar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. Rav Acha, the son of Chanina, said that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, Halacha ka Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. The halacha is like Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. Ike de Masnele, the Rav Acha bar Chanina, aha de Tanya. Some teach this teaching of Rav Acha, the son of Rav Chanina, on that was taught in a brisa. Listen to this one. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai Omer, Mishum Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai says, in the name of Rabbi Akiva, Pa'amim, sometimes it happens, she'adam korei kriyat shema shtei pa'amim bayom. Sometimes it happens that a person reads the Kriyat Shema, the reading of the Shema, 2 times in the daytime. Achas kodem ha-Neitz HaChama. Once he does it before Neitz HaChama. That was what the halacha is going on that we just read now. V'achas le'achar ha-Neitz HaChama. And one time he reads it after Neitz HaChama, meaning when the sun comes out in all its glory and the day is bright. V'yetze b'hem yadei chovaso. And he fulfills his obligation through this. Achat shel yom v'achat shel laila. Once for the day and once for the night. Says the Gemara, the exact same problem. Ha'gufa kasha. But that statement in itself is a contradiction. Amrat, you said, Pa'amim she'adam korei kriyat shema shtei pa'amim bayom. Sometimes a person reads the Kriyat Shema 2 times in the daytime. Alma, we see that before the rising of the blossoming rising of the sun, it is the daytime. And afterwards it teaches, and then afterwards you say that a person fulfills with them his obligation once in the daytime and once in the nighttime. Alma, we see Eliyahu, that really it's the nighttime. Let's see this note here. This is the halakha. At times one recites Shema twice during the day. When, due to exigent circumstances, one is unable to delay recitation of Shema until sunrise, he may recite it after dawn. In any case, even where no exigent circumstances exist, and he could have recited Shema later. If he recited Shema after dawn, he fulfilled his obligation. This is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon cited in our Gemara and the halakhic ruling in the second Mishnah. The same principle applies over here, that he could recite the Kriyat Shema twice during the day, and he fulfills once for the evening and once for the daytime. But the main thing is not to cause a contradiction one on the other. What is this subject here of dawn and sunrise, the background? While the term Amud HaShakar is employed extensively in rabbinic literature, its meaning is not entirely clear. The first rays of dawn are not noticeable at one particular moment, although a similar phrase, Ayelet HaShachar, is defined as two rays of light shining from the east. The sages debated the precise halachic time of Alot HaShachar. The general consensus is that it is 1 hour and 12 minutes before sunrise. That's 72 minutes, which is the amount of time required to walk 8,000 cubits, which is basically 4 kilometers in distance. If we're using kilometers, a kilometer is said to take 18 minutes. So 4 kilometers, this 8,000 cubits, is the equivalent of the 72 minutes. Between dawn and sunrise, there is an intermediate period called the illumination of the east, which is known as He'ir HaMizrach, when the entire eastern horizon is illuminated prior to sunrise, which is at the moment that a portion of the sun itself is visible over the horizon. This is followed by the emergence of the sun, Yetzias Hashemis, when the sun becomes visible in its entirety. This is what we described before. I've explained that, and this is just a clarification. This is self-contradictory. What does this mean? Ha-gufa kashya. This is one of the fundamental Talmudic expressions which indicates an internal contradiction within a previously cited Mishnah or Halakha. Generally, challenges introduced by this phrase center on stylistic difficulties and incongruity of the terms in the various sections of the source cited. We move on now to Daf Tet Amud Aleph. This is page 9. We're on side A, the first side of page 9. Lo, the Gemara continues back to our conversation. No, le'olam yemamahu. It's always daytime, meaning when we were reciting the Keriat Shema at the time of the Neitzach Hama, just before, just after, it's always daytime. V'ha dekaru leila, and that they called it nighttime. The reason that we call it the night time is because there are still people who are sleeping at that time, and people generally sleep at the night time, so it's called night. But really, it's daytime. So what one does is one reads the Keriat Shema at this period of time, which is actually daytime, but one fulfills the obligation for both the evening and also for the day. As long as one doesn't self-contradict the situation that's going on, one can fulfill whatever one needs at that point in time. Omer Rabbi Akiva, but Rabbi Chanina, Rabbi Akiva said, Rabbi Akiva, the son of Rabbi Chanina, said, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, Omer Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, said that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, Halacha ka Rabbi Shimon, the halacha is like Rabbi Shimon, she'amar mishum Rabbi Akiva, that he said it in the name of Rabbi Akiva, Omer Rabbi Zera, and Rabbi Zera added a point. The main thing is don't say hashkivenu. If one wants to fulfill one's obligation of saying the Keriat Shema in the evening, he can do so, but he shouldn't say the hashkivenu prayer, help us lie down. As well, after reciting the evening Shema before sunrise, as the blessing help us lie down is a prayer that we sleep in peace, which is inappropriate in the morning. Ki aser Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef. When Rav Yitzchak, the son of Yosef, came there, in other words, he came to Bavel from Eretz Yisrael. Omar had Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Chanina, Omar Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. He said, that Rabbi Akiva, the son of Rabbi Chanina, said that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, Lav befeirush itmar. He didn't say it explicitly. Ella miklala itmar, but rather he said it as an inference. What does that mean? Read on the background that this comment that a specific halakha was not stated explicitly but only inferred is not uncommon in the Talmud. It is not merely an attempt to ascertain the precise manner in which the statement was transmitted. Rather, the Gemara is calling attention to the fact that one cannot rely on the formulation of a specific halakha as it appears, as the halakha was not stated in that form, but it was inferred from a statement made in a different context. In this case, the difference between the two versions is clear. At first, the halakha was presented as an absolute ruling, while the original version indicates that it is not standard practice, merely that Rabbi Shimon is worthy to rely upon in exigent circumstances. Let's see that inside over here. So he said this only with regards to an inference. Dahu zugad de Rabbanan. There was this pair of sages. The ishtakur be'ilulat Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. It was an exigent circumstances that occurred over here. That this pair of rabbinical authorities, these two great students, rabbis, they got drunk at the wedding of the son of Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. Asula kamed Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi. So they came before Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, Omar, and he answered them, meaning Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, who's been discussing this whole discussion that we've been speaking about. He says, Kadai hu Rabbi Shimon nismoch alav bishas hadchak. That Rabbi Shimon, it is worthy to rely upon him in exigent circumstances. When things are at a point where there's no way out, you can rely upon Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. This is a great principle in the Torah altogether, and it is very often quoted out of this context that we're learning it at the moment, that when a person finds himself in difficult circumstances, we can always rely upon Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai to help us. So that means to say that, of course, in this circumstance over here, where Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai taught us that we could recite the Keriat Shema twice and fulfill both the day and the evening, but the circumstances were exigent circumstances, unusual, once-off circumstances. But nevertheless, we learn a great principle in any case. When a person is in a situation that is difficult, we say that Kadai hu Rabbi Shimon lismoch alav b'shas hadchak. That Rabbi Shimon is always worthy of relying upon when we are going through a difficult part of our lives. Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai will come to rescue us, so to speak. Ma'aseh sheba'u banov. The Gemara continues, going back to our Mishnah. There was a story that Rabban Gamliel's sons had returned from a wedding, and so now they wanted to know if they could recite the Keriat Shema. That goes back to our Mishnah that we learned. V'ad hashta lo shemiya lehu had Rabban Gamliel, and until now they never heard about this teaching of Rabban Gamliel. Very interesting. First of all, they're Rabban Gamliel's children. How could it be that they had not heard about this teaching of Rabban Gamliel? Is this the first time that they were hearing it? Haki ka'amri lei. So they said the following to him: Rabbanan pligi ilavach. Is it that the rabbis are arguing with you? V'yachid v'rabim halacha kerabim. And that the real law is as follows. That when we have an individual opinion, and we have an opinion by the many, that the halacha follows the many, or dilma, or perhaps, Rabbanan kavasach sevir eluhu, the rabbis are holding like you. V'haida ka'amari ad chatzos, and this that you're saying until, and this that the rabbis are saying that you can only say the Keriat Shema until Chatzos, is kedei laharchik adam min ha'aveira, is in order to distance a person from committing an aveira, because they need to recite the Keriat Shema in the evening. If we tell people say it until Chatzos and then it goes past Chatzos, they could still fulfill their obligation. But if you tell people that they can say the Keriat Shema right up until the dawn, and it comes to dawn and they didn't do it, then they'll be in trouble. They won't be able to fulfill the mitzvah. So we tell them rather that the halacha is until Chatzos, and if they make a mistake, they'll be able to repair it. Omar lehu, he said to them, Rabbanan kavasi sevir lehu. The rabbis hold like I do. V'chayavim atem, and so therefore you are still obligated to recite the Keriat Shema now in the early hours of the morning that you've come back from this wedding. And that they said that a person can only recite the Keriat Shema until Chatzos, until midnight, is kedei la'archik adam min ha'aveira. The real reason that they said it is not because it is halacha lema'aseh. It's not practical halacha, but rather they said it only to keep a person away from committing an aveira. Now the Gemara continues. V'lo zo bilvad amru ela. And they didn't say this only with regards to the Keriat Shema, meaning until Chatzos, but rather they said the following: V'Rabban Gamliel, mi ka'amar ad Chatzos, the katani v'lo zo bilvad amru. Rabban Gamliel, did he say that until Chatzos? Did he say these words? That he carries on and he says v'lo zo bilvad amru, and not only this did they say it about, as if he was the one who said until Chatzos. What does it mean? This is what Rabban Gamliel was saying to his sons. The Ka'amri ad Chatzois, even according to the rabbis, that they say that one can only recite the Keriat Shema until Chatzois. Mitzvasa ad sheyale amud hashachar, but the mitzvah is you can continue doing it until the pillar of dawn comes up. V'hai the Ka'amri ad Chatzois, and this that they say that the mitzvah only applies until Chatzois is kedei la'archik adam min ha'aveira, is in order to distance a person from Aveira, which means to say wherever the rabbis had taught this idea of Ad Chatzois, it is only there to teach us to keep a person away from committing the Aveira. And the Gemara continued with this idea that Hekte Chalavim, that the burning of the fats and all these other things also could be performed only until midnight, but in reality they could be performed right up until the pillar of dawn. And the only reason that the rabbis had said that these things can be done until Chatzois was to keep a person distant from Aveira. But with regards to eating the Pesach offering, they didn't teach this. In other words, as we see here in the note, the eating of the Paschal lamb was not taught among those mitzvot that may be performed until dawn, indicating that the mitzvah of eating the Paschal lamb does not extend until dawn. Urimini, when a contradiction was raised, Keriat Shema Arabit, when we speak about the recitation of the Keriat Shema in the evening, v'halel belel psachim, and also the halel on the nights of Pesach, v'achilas Pesach, and the eating of the Pesach offering, mitzvasan ad sheyale amud hashachar. The mitzvah is up until the pillar of dawn, which is very strange. Why is it taught over there that one can eat the Pesach offering up until the pillar of dawn, whereas according to the rabbis, they want to always say everything should be done until Chatzois to keep a person away from Aveiros? Omar Rav Yosef lo kasha. Rav Yosef says there's no difficulty. This teaching, this our Mishnah, is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, and Rabbi Akiva. This teaching relates to what Rabbi Akiva said. The Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, and they shall eat the meat on this evening. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Omer, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, Ne'emar kan balayla hazeh. It says over here on this night, V'ne'emar lahalan, and it says over there later, V'avarti be'eretz Mitzrayim balayla hazeh, and I shall pass over the land of Egypt on this night. Ma lahalan ad Chatzois, said Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. He said, just as it is that over there, it was referring to the time period of Chatzot, when God passed through the land and killed the firstborn, ultimately bringing freedom to the Jewish people. Avkan ad Chatzos, so too over here, the mitzvah of eating the Paschal lamb also applies until Chatzois. Omale Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Akiva said to him, V'halo, but surely, kavan ne'ema b'chipazon. Didn't it already say the word chipazon in haste? In haste, which means what? It says over here, thus you shall eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, your staffs in your hand, and you will eat it in haste, for it is the Paschal offering for the Lord. Therefore, the Paschal lamb may be eaten until the time ad sha'as chipazon, until the time of haste. What does it mean until the time of haste? Right up until the time when the Jewish people fled from Egypt in a hurry. When did they flee from Egypt in a hurry? In the daytime. Im kain, if so, ma Talmud loymar balayla. Therefore, why does the Torah teach at night? Meaning, how can it be that all of these things occurred at the nighttime when apparently the Jewish people were only freed in the daytime? The Gemara continues. Yachol, one might think, that it could be eaten like all holy sacrifices in the daytime. Talmud loymar, therefore the Torah teaches, balayla. At the night time it must be eaten. Balayla hu ne'echal. It should be eaten at night time. V'lo bayom. And it shouldn't be eaten in the daytime. That's what we mean to say. The main thing is that the offering should be eaten at the night time and not in the daytime. The dispute between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah The manner in which the Gemara clarifies the various stages of a dispute and the interpretation of the verses in accordance with both opinions is actually a means to prove the fundamental consensus between them. Ultimately, it becomes clear that the two Tanaim agree with regard to virtually all of the halachot. And the emphasis in the verses, and the emphasis in the verses, the difference between them is limited to the question whether the Torah's use of the word morning refers to the first or the second morning. The general approach of the Talmud is to minimize the scope of a dispute, reducing it to a dispute over logical reasoning. In that way, the opinion of each of the disputants is valid and each can remain committed to his opinion. Now, what is the actual halacha? And they shall eat of the meat on that night until the time of haste. The mitzvah by Torah law is to eat the paschal lamb extends until dawn. However, in order to distance a person from transgression, the sages instituted midnight as the deadline for eating the sacrifice. As everybody knows, the mitzvah of eating the afikomen, which corresponds to eating the Pesach offering, because today we don't have a Pesach offering, we eat the afikomen, the last piece of matzah on Pesach, on the night of Pesach, when you have the Seder, must be eaten before midnight. Some people even hold that one should have drunk already the fourth cup of wine by that time. But even if one doesn't manage to get there, at the very least, one should eat that piece of matzah before midnight in accordance with this ruling over here. The Torah law is in accordance with the opinions of Rabbi Akiva, according to whom the halacha is established in disputes following his colleagues, and Rabbi Yehoshua, according to whom the halacha is established in disputes with Rabbi Eliezer. The ruling establishing the deadline at midnight is based on the opinion of the rabbis in the Mishnah, who established a fence to distance a person from transgression. So, as we see over here, essentially, the difference between these two opinions revolves around which words they deemed significant. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah considered the word night as the key word, while Rabbi Akiva considered the word haste as the key words. The Gemara begins to analyze their statements. So basically what's happened over here, each one wants to give an opinion as to the correct time that we have to eat the Pesach offering. And as we see that Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is telling us, he's basing it on the fact of the word night, that it happened at the night time. And so therefore we have to eat everything by night. Whereas Rabbi Akiva was focusing on the fact that the Jewish people left the chipazon in a hurry. And when did they leave in a hurry? They left in the daytime. And therefore he uses that as the key word. But essentially they're both really saying the same thing. At the end of the day, the Pesach offering must be eaten at the night time before it is day. And in addition to that, we must follow the opinion of, whenever we speak about this idea of a mitzvah being done at nighttime, in accordance with the sages who say that whenever we have a mitzvah at night, the mitzvah continues ad chatzos. Why? In order to distance a person away from Avera. And if he would come to do the mitzvah afterwards, at least he would still fulfill the mitzvah. But if we told him that the mitzvah could be done right up until the daytime and he missed it, he might not be able to fulfill the mitzvah at all. So we really want to put it into a position that a person will not come to stumble and commit an Avera. So we're actually going to stop over here because the discussion between the two continues, and I think it will be a good place to stop, where next time we'll be able to go in more depth with this discussion between the two rabbis. So in the meantime, I say thank you very much for joining me for this shiur in the Masechet Berachot, and I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please click on the like button under this video to say that you've enjoyed it, and click on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel, as well as the bell button to be notified of future shiurim. As always, you're welcome to be in touch with me about any areas of life and Torah. I'm Eliyahu Shear, and you can contact me through my website at www.lovingkindness.co. I look forward to another shiur, and I also encourage you to share these shiurim with family and friends. Let them know what we're doing, and to become a part of the activities that we're involved in Chesed Ve'emet, check out my site, see what we're involved in, and take a part in becoming a partner with us so that we can provide more in terms of Torah teaching, in being able to do more of these videos, in being able to give more of these shiurim to people and offer the opportunity that nobody should have to even pay because they have the opportunity to learn with us. We can only do that when we have your support so that we're able to provide more of this without having to worry about the financial issues. And of course, it takes money to produce these videos and everything that we're doing. So the more that you can encourage friends to take part in what we're doing, the easier you make it for us to be able to do more of the things that we enjoy doing. And we'd be delighted to be in touch with you about any subject. As I said before, please feel free to be in touch with us. I look forward to another shiur in the near future, and I wish you everything of the best. Shalom, shalom. Bye-bye.